Hey, what's good fam? It's 404 day, which means it's time to download the new firmware update and see what new stuff they've added to the SP-404 Mark II. Once again, there's a heap of new bits of functionality they've added, which I've had a lot of fun learning how to use. Since this machine first came out in 2001, probably the most asked question I've gotten down in the YouTube comments is, can I use the SP-404 Mark II like a guitar loop pedal in a live situation? Well, today I can finally say, yes, it can do that. Back in 2008, Roland released the SP-555, and something it brought to the SP table was its ability to loop capture. SPVids has made a bunch of videos on this back in the day, which are well worth checking out. The SP-404 Mark II's loop capture has been designed pretty much the same way as the 555, and man, it is really fun to mess with. In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the basics on how to use the looper, and then I'm going to break down how I approach that little lo-fi jazz type thing I did at the beginning of this video. Things like my amp sim settings, how I set the effects bus routings, the MFX I used, and also using the newly added sound generator for my bass line. Okay, so with that all said, let's start with the basics. The looper lives in the same place as skip back, under the mark button. So the first thing we need to do is hold down shift and click in the value knob. This switches it from the skip back mode to the loop capture mode. Next we hit the mark button to enter the loop capture screen. Starting from the left, the first parameter we have here is measure length. This is defining how long your loop is going to be. The options here, just like on the SP-555, are 1 bar, 2 bars, 4 bars, or free. Setting it to say 2 bars, for example, means it will stop recording the first layer after 2 bars and then start looping. Setting it to free means you'll start recording the first layer, performing at your own tempo, and press the rec button to mark where the end is. Bear in mind that the longest a loop can be is 16 seconds. In the middle, we have auto trig. This is how you want recording to start. Set it to on, and it'll wait for you to hit the first pad or play your first note to start recording. With it set to off, it'll start recording when you hit the record button. BPM, as you'd imagine, is the tempo of your loop. In the middle here is level. Having it set to 127 means that whatever volume you record something, that's the same volume it plays back on repeat. If you were to set this value to about, say, 60, whatever you record, it will play back at about half the volume you played it. Feedback is just like the feedback parameter on a delay. Set to 100%, the thing you record will keep playing at a constant volume. Setting it to a lower percentage, like say 50%, the thing you record will play back quieter and quieter and quieter on each repeat until it's gone. Holding down shift, we have a couple of other parameters we can adjust. Bus has the options of dry, bus 1, bus 2, and looper. Looper is what you need to have it set to while overdubbing. When you want to start messing around with effects on what you've recorded, set it to either bus 1 or bus 2. If you set this to bus 1, you can run your performance effects like DJ Effects Looper on bus 1 and have it work on the looped recording, as well as whatever's on the pads. And of course, it obeys the same routing logic in effects settings with buses 1 and 2 being configured to serial or parallel. If you're new to how this whole effect bus system works, I have a tutorial on that, which I'll drop a link for down in the description. The next parameter we have here is routing. This is asking where is it recording from, just like it does in record settings when sampling. Set to mix, what you hear is what it records, including all the effects on your instruments and any samples triggered on the pads. So like this, if you want to record drum samples or a bass line or something, it captures all of that. Set to external in, it will only record the stuff being played through the inputs, that being the direct signal from the mic guitar input at the front or the line in at the back. It'll record and loop that stuff, but will ignore any samples triggered on the pads. In fact, you could have a pattern playing in the background with like a drum loop and other stuff, and you could jam along to that while recording loops. For what I like to do, I lean towards setting the routing to mix. The last parameter on this screen is the metronome's volume, setting it from 1 to 5. While on the subject of the metronome, the only reason you could hear it just now is that because under the click settings, I have output assign set to on. This means the metronome can be heard through my headphones and the line out, which I'm recording this video from. Obviously, when doing this live, we don't want the audience to hear the metronome. So, you'd set that to off, which means the metronome you'll be able to hear through the headphones, but not the line out. But for the sake of this video, back on it goes. Righto, now that I've covered what each parameter does, I'm going to walk you through how to record some stuff. For this example, what I've got on the pads to play with are these drums, some jazz stuff I chopped, and this bass note. In addition to that, I'll also play a little guitar, and for that I add reverb on bus 1. As you can see, all the pads are lit white, showing that they are not assigned to affect buses 1 or 2. And I'll explain more about why I chose to do that later. In this first example, I'm going to have measure length set to free, auto trig on, ignore the BPM because I'm recording in free mode, bus set to looper, and routing set to mix. To kick things off, the 2 buttons you need to know about are record and resample. I press the record button and it's now waiting for me to play a note or hit a pad to start recording. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finger drum a 1-bar drum loop. When I'm done, I press record again and then it starts repeating the loop. When I'm ready to start overdubbing, I'll hit resample, lay down the jazz chops, play a bass line with a sample in chromatic mode, and do some guitar stuff. Then I'll press resample again to turn off overdubbing. And from that point forward, pressing record will start and stop the loop. If you don't like what you did, you press Shift and Pattern Select, like in the pattern sequencer, to undo your last overdub. And again to redo, to put it back. Now something really dope I like is this. Over here where it used to say BPM, it's now changed to play rate. It says that it's playing at 100% speed and the loop is at 77.86 BPM. Now while the loop is playing, we can slow it down as far as 1% or up to 199%. And that's what I did to end my jam at the start of the video if you didn't skip past that. Now, let's look at using performance effects on this loop. Holding down Shift, I'm going to change looper to bus 2. I'm choosing bus 2 because for the time being, I want to keep reverb on my guitar on bus 1, but I don't want there to be reverb on my beat. If you want to save your loop to a pad, press copy. Then select a destination, in this case, pad 6. Finally, if you're done with your loop and you don't want it anymore, press delete and gone. Memory is clear and you're ready to start again fresh. For my next example, I'm going to make the same beat again, but this time, instead of starting off with the drum loop like I did, I'm going to lay down the other stuff in the guitar first, stop the overdubbing, and then run this drum loop that I made in the pattern sequencer over it. This is the method I used for my intro jam, which allowed me to drop the drums in and out, and also mess with the effects on just the loop and not the drums, which was really cool, especially during my guitar solo when I turned on the low pass filter to create space and variation. The tempo of my drum loop is 84 BPM, so gonna set measure length to 1 because I'm trying to keep it fast and simple for these demonstrations. I'm gonna keep auto trigger on, hold down Shift. Very importantly, change bus back to looper and keep routing to mix. All right, hit record to arm it. If you can't hear the metronome, Shift +9 to turn it on. If you're worried about starting the drums perfectly in time with the loop, I found that that thing I just did there where I hit record to stop it at the same time as I hit this snare on the last beat of the bar before I want the drum loop to come in, it creates a cool little gap of silence before it all kicks in harder, and I've now triggered both of those to start at the same time. Easy. And I should quickly mention that when I recorded that, I had set the bus routing to parallel, which means bus 1 had my reverb on it, bus 2 had like DJ effects and stuff over the loop, but those bus 2 effects weren't touching my guitar. Lastly, let's again save this to a pad. Now sometimes you may get a digital click at the start or end of the loop. If so, go into start end, zoom all the way in, and hit resample. To turn on 0 cross snap. And for the end there, I'm just going to put a small envelope. These are just two approaches to using the looper that I've been messing with. I'm sure there's like so many more angles you can attack this from. I have another method I've been working on where I'm using the pattern sequencer and the looper at the same time. Like you set routing to external in, so it's only recording the guitar stuff in here. And then I have running in the background the pattern sequencer. And while I'm recording a pattern in real time, I'm also recording guitar looping at the same time. And yeah, it all works, and I've still got to tighten up the science a little bit, but if you guys are interested, I'll make a video on that in the next week or so. Anyway, moving on. Next, I want to walk you through all the guitar setup stuff, so my amp sim and the MFX I used in that intro jam. To start with, I've got my guitar plugged directly into the front input. Got the switch set to guitar, and I got the gain slightly past 9 o'clock. I wanted to make a point in this video of not using any guitar pedals, just so I can show you what this thing sounds like by itself. But usually I'd like to put like a wah pedal, or you can use a tube screamer. I got this SSS SRV, which is pretty cool for helping shape your tone and compressing a little bit. So yeah, pretty much like what you put in front of a guitar amp, you can put in front of this. Righto, so that's my guitar with nothing. My amp sim setting. I like to go with the twin. I've got drive just somewhere under 50, level at 100, bass around 27, middle at 10, and treble at 13. This changes on whatever guitar I'm using. Like my Stratocaster responds differently to my Les Paul, responds differently to my Mockingbird, whatever. By default, the external source is routing to bus 1. You can use remain and hit it to change it to bus 2 or whatever. So the reverb I like to use is usually hall 1 or hall 2. Time set to 78 and level at 47. All these parameter settings I'm going to write down and put in the description. Probably too much reverb, but you know, that's how it goes. So while I was recording the intro thing, when I was laying down all the overdubs, I had bus 1 and bus 2 in serial mode, meaning I could put 2 effects on the guitar at once. In this case, I start off always with the reverb on bus 1. On bus 2, my first thing was I had vinyl sim, frequency around 72, noise at 1, flutter around 68. And when I recorded that, I was on my bridge pickup. And I rolled the volume back just a little bit because I wanted the background stuff to be a little bit softer than my guitar solo sound, which was on the neck pickup full volume. It's really cool to be able to play in real time with 404 vinyl sim on. It's just a cool like effect I wish came in a pedal. For the next layer of guitar, I was using the Juno chorus and I turned the noise down. I think I had it on Juno 2 and then 50/50. And then when I recorded this, I tried to play it soft and over the neck like that instead of... And that just helps it sort of blend a little bit better with the other guitar part. And then I'd turn that off, switch the neck pick up, and start playing with the pick. That was kind of my lead tone. So then after all the overdubbing was done, when it came to the performance effects that I used, which I didn't use very much, I had Isolator, which is my standard thing, minus infinite, 2.3, minus infinite. On the filter drive pad, I've actually got super filter, and I had it set up as a low pass filter. So I had that over the loop playing, but the drums were being played off this. So the super filter was only on the music stuff, and that created a lot of space for my solo. You could hear the guitar better, or the reverb and all that sort of stuff. On the resonator, I had stopper, and I'm using like a quarter note with depth to 100. Under delay, I had scatter, and I like using just 10, 10, single. That was all I used for this jam. There's other really fun stuff you could be playing with, like tape echo and flanges and phases and stuff on guitar. And of course, pan and trem, all that stuff's good. And next up, let's look at what's on the pads. So like, I'll talk you through this stuff in order. So I played the first guitar thing. Then on the first repeat, I had these clicks. I just played on the 2 and 4. My main drum loop. And to get into that, I did like a... while triggering the sample at the same time, so it was tight. Then after the guitar solo, I did like a... to bring the beat back in. During the guitar solo, while the drums were playing and the low pass filter was on, at the end of every 4 bars, I would play this. Just to add like another element because of the low pass filter, I needed to add something else besides just the drums, just to keep it more interesting. And finally, when I was doing the slowing down the speed thing, I had this at the end.
Like a tape playing over and over on an endless loop.
Just to end the thing, so yeah. Which brings me to the last topic, which is the sound generator, which I use for the bass line. Now this is a new thing that's come with this update, and I'm really stoked they've done this. This is really awesome. So Shift plus record setting will take you into it. First thing I want to point out is 127 is like a full volume sine wave. When I recorded it, I figured that about 23 was good for the mix. Important thing is that you press remain to have a preview on dry. So you could have it like bus 1 or bus 2. Like for example, if you go to like a triangle, right now you can hear it's got my reverb on it. And probably don't want that. But if you were to put a low pass filter on a triangle, that's a really cool sound. Anyway, so I was using sine wave and put it on preview on dry, which means the bus effects, whatever you're doing, you don't have to think about turning them off. It will just... God damn, that sounds good. I'm so stoked that they've added that. Back on the old 404s, we used to use the subsonic to create bass lines and stuff, and this is just so much better. This is so good. So that's about all there is to that. I'm going to end the video here. There's obviously much more I could delve into with this topic. If you have any questions about how to use the looper or the new update, any of the new functionality, get at me in the comments. If you want me to make a video on what my favorite things are that they've introduced, which there is a bunch, like there's some really cool stuff here. Like seriously, get downloading on this thing right now and just get at me in the comments. So thanks heaps for watching my stuff. I always appreciate you guys, and yeah, till next time. Laters.